Well, 20 years after South Africa escaped oppression, are we free yet? Isn't that the million-dollar question? What will it take to achieve the country imagined by our liberation heroes?
Well, let's speak to Nishan Bolton, representing Defend Our Democracy from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. A very good morning to you, Nishan, and thank you so much for joining us here on the South African Morning. So let's put that question to you. What will it take?
Well, I think firstly, it will take a change of expectation around timeframes to eradicate all of the issues that we inherited from apartheid, as well as the issues that we ourselves have created to further sort of mess up the country in the last sort of 28 years. If you read Madiba's Long Walk to Freedom, it's very clear in there that 1994 wasn't the start of freedom, but was an opportunity for us to start freeing ourselves. And what you saw in the first few years of that democracy was a massive implementation of water, sanitation, housing, municipal infrastructure, school building projects across the length and breadth of this country. And I think for the first 10 years, you saw benefits of freedom, which unfortunately have now been eroded to the point that this item that you have been leading on is a clear example of that. It's a breakdown of a system. So I think freedom for most people today would mean having a place to live, having food, having a job, having decent education, public transport that works, or even public transport in the form of trains that run, and a whole range of other basics in life, access to reliable electricity or water. It's a set of basic issues today that I think would define freedom for most people. But fundamental to those freedoms are obviously the freedoms that South Africans enjoy is freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion. But those are not coupled with the kind of life-giving elements of freedom that have been eroded by a government that has proved itself to beyond its capacity and ability to really deliver what South Africans require. So that is in the first instance. You need a government that is people-centered, a government that is accountable, and a government that prioritizes the needs of people and is able to help society hold the private sector accountable for what it needs to do in order to rebuild this country.
Yeah, Nishan, as you're speaking about this, if we've got a disjuncted political system or even a governance system in this country, the question then becomes how long can the people take it for? And a low-hanging fruit as a poignant example to when the people actually revolt is taking in a chapter from Sri Lanka. We had members of the public storming the presidential house. I think it was yesterday the scenes were coming out where you could see the people actually in that presidential palace. Now the president, we understand, has actually fled the country. Nobody knows his whereabouts. Cabinet ministers resigned because of high cost of living, high fuel prices, inequalities that exist. And the problems are similar to South Africa as well in terms of high cost of living, people not being able to afford, just to live and survive in this country. How long can the people take before we follow suit in some of these countries where the citizens are saying enough is enough?
Well, I think there's a significant difference. What you've had in Sri Lanka is a country that was war-torn, a country that was ruled by a particular family, and not necessarily a government that was representative. But you have similar socioeconomic issues, but you have a very different political history. And what you have in South Africa today could possibly lead to that kind of scenario. But I think there is still scope to build community level organization to deal with the socioeconomic issues that we face. as well as to if we get to the point of that dissatisfaction, South Africans always have the opportunity in the 2024 elections to change this government, to change who governs us, and on the basis of policies that we think will address the issues of this country. But fundamentally, in this country, you need a change to the political system. And I think if there is continued resistance to the kind of changes that brings about a truly accountable governance system, then scenarios like Sri Lanka will become very possible in this country. You've had similar kinds of things in other parts of the world. They've not been sustained beyond the protests, and there's been further chaos after those protests. That's really what we should not be striving towards. But I think those visuals give you a sense of what happens when people reach boiling point. And I'm hoping that those who are in the positions of power in this country are looking at what is happening there and will draw lessons on the need for rapid change in this country, both socioeconomic and political.
For as long as we have struggle stalwarts, Nishan, do you genuinely believe that there is a possibility of things changing in this country? You know, for as long as we have people who, are still using the "we fought for this country's liberation," and therefore we cannot be told, that we're not doing enough for our people, that we represented our people in the days of apartheid, so we are still representing our people now today in a democratic South Africa, and yet we are finding ourselves in a case where we are now starting to talk about a failed state. We are now starting to compare ourselves to Zimbabwe. So for as long as we still have struggle stalwarts, and liberators now running a democratic country, do you genuinely feel that things will change?
I'm hopeful that there is the possibility for change. There is the possibility for peaceful change. I think we must get rid of this notion that any struggle involvement removes you from being accountable and also behaving in a way that is dignified, no matter what the circumstances are when you are called to account. I think labels of involvement in the liberation struggle, society should begin to question those and relate it to what exactly is required of those who are in positions of power today. Your struggle involvement, it has got no relevance to the job title that you hold today to keep this country functional, to deliver the kinds of services that are required, and to make way if you can't do the job.
We have to leave it there. Nishan Bolton, thank you very much for your time this morning, looking at defending our democracy and how is it that 28 years into this democracy we can take accountability for how do we truly build an inclusive, developing, economically thriving South Africa. Because I tell you what, if we continue to do things the same way, that agenda is not going to be achieved anytime soon.